Used to a disappointment. I didn't feel like I wanted to be.
Oh, yeah, you're like, right now. That's like, come on, man. Sugar.
I don't have one.
You're right.
It's, you know, the
The laptop's behind me.
it's fine about years now, because they see me efficient.
I just don't know how to read on my iPad.
Yeah, I've
I'm really
heard
bad about that.
I know.
I mean, I went down to a little purchase. My friends can't believe.
How do you keep everything you need in that?
I just, whatever.
Now, down
Fit in
home,
there, that's it.
now down home is this pocketbook.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. if you-
Exactly.
I still have a good pocket book. That's what my grandma always done. But no, I had the snap on the counter.
The one that you're-
Yeah.
She's a.
I will add another one up there.
I mean, she gets bent off a challenge. when she
But I
needs
didn't
to.
want to clean it, so I said I'm converting.
Well, here's what I carry on the daily basis, but then when I come in here, I got this big honker. Cause it's got snacks and
Yeah.
water and.
Okay, you have your. So we just need. So it coupled with the fact that, the sun is
On our
shining
backs.
right on us. I will say this though, I don't know if I ever want to be on that side because you guys have to fight the.
Yeah.
Thank you. You're most welcome.
Thank you guys. and change.
Sure. Here, just-
My glasses dark.
When you need one.
Okay. Do they darken?
They should call, I don't know if they.
They don't look like stars.
It said something came.
And check these.
Yeah, no, if I'm warm, if I'm.
So she was able to research something.
With, you know, back here, I said, what I may do is. Generate more information. So it might be easier for her to see who's speaking.
Right.
Transcribe.
But I have some jobs.
Okay.
So we'll give you. Bigger than. And it's not a big deal. I actually. Bringing it up, like, one of those things where. I don't do it every time.
That was for the last week. Says.
It's a Secretary of State's consideration.
6 months.
What was it called?
3-6.
Oh, I did, yeah, 11:30. So that was when I processed.
We had like 2 or 3, not many, but there were a couple before that, and I never got.
Interesting.
So
Yeah.
it's out there. in that there's like a reverse or Sunday. And so. Let's, if you're working any next week.
Yeah.
So Monday or Tuesday, let's get on your phone.
Yes, absolutely. And I'll get it because, absolutely got it, get your hands. No, that's your copy. I've got a copy in your file.
It's not just, well, I'm not validated over violated, but it's really, it's just, it's like.
No.
Because I think it's the issue, I very rarely claim it, but.
Thank you.
And so I'm gonna lose one other. Yeah, if I voted for, she's.
Okay, yeah. Congratulations.
I'm good. It's gonna be a new one for a shop. So I'll send you that.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Give me.
No, I clear my schedule. But if we. Stop.
Right. One of those.
Now I'm putting pressure.
No, I joke, I'm teasing with him. Oh. That one.
Still, you may. So before, actually, before we get into this, we need tidings to bring Catskills and reconvene us. Or make it simple.
No, others.
Oh, yeah, I don't think you guys actually have a different kind of a date.
Yes. All right.
Oh, yeah.
It's like 6 inches.
It's 10:05 and I would like to call the December 14th, 2023 meeting of the Ohio Elections Commission to order. Mr. Richter, will you please call the roll?
So Mr. Caraway,
Present.
Mr. Knight,
Here.
Mr. Lyle.
Here.
Mrs. Hagan,
Present.
Mr. Holden, there, Vice Chair Tavares,
Here.
Chair Coffin.
Here.
All members of the commission are present.
Okay, thank you. The first order of business is the approval of regular meeting minutes of November 30th, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor that's been duly seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Post same sign. Motion carries with a vote of 7-0. The first case.
Yep.
Is the preliminary review. It is case number 2023 G-043. This has been withdrawn by the complaint.
The complainant contacted me by email late last week. He and I had conversations. We had recent conversations concerning this matter. He has decided to withdraw the matter, so the matter is withdrawn. There is no further action necessary by the commission.
All right, so the next case,
Yeah, you can do that one next.
okay. We're gonna go out of order slightly just to expedite some folks that are here. So this is a reconsideration case, the case in 2023 S-044. The recommendation is to find a violation, reconsider the matter, vacate the previous imposition of the per diem fine, and instead find good cause not to impose a fine or refer the matter for further prosecution. And Mr. Katz is here.
Madam Chair, I'm sorry, I'm having trouble. There's a G044. What page is?
It's on the very last
The
page.
very last page, the
85.
for the other business.
I got you. Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, Cass. Commission originally decided this case in October. Reconsideration was then, and the commission imposed $25 per day fine after finding a violation. We just recently received a request to have the matter reconsidered. The synopsis of the response from the treasurer was that he had a stroke in the fall of 2020. The committee has essentially been dormant since that time. After receiving notice from the commission from the finding, treasurer expended the remaining funds in the committee and filed a determination report. And so my recommendation is to reconsider the matter, vacate the previous imposition of a per diem fine, and instead find that there's good cause present not to impose the fine or refer the matter for the prosecution. As I said on repeated other occasions, I guess I'm often a sucker for the health issue explanation that is provided to the commission. And so that's the primary basis for why I'm recommending good cause and not necessarily the imposition of even a relatively minor fine. I'll be glad to answer any other questions that the commission may have, and the commission can certainly hear from Mr. Katz or Alexis Palumbo, who is also here on behalf of the Office of the Secretary of State, if the commission so chooses.
Good morning, Brian Katz and Alexis Palumbo from the Secretary of State's office. The Secretary of State's office has no objection to the executive director's recommendation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I'll move the executive director's recommendation.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor that's been duly seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries with a vote of 7-0. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so the next, we're gonna go again out of order. The next case,
Go back.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go back up to here.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, you will teach next to me.
Okay.
To their way.
Okay, so we're gonna go in order. And the next case is 2023 G-021.
023.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, 023. I have
2023 Jesus. Did you need Mr. Beatty's from the assets. From the meeting as we
I had too
kind of
much
discussed.
in my crossing 2023G-023.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, I received a request from legal counsel for the respondent this morning, asking if the matter could be continued to January 18th. As you can see, this, the name of this case, the Ohio Auditor State et al. Versus Dickens. And I provided everybody the material related to this case. I provided a copy of the email that I received to counsel for the Auditor of State. They were here this morning when I provided that to them and indicated that I would be recommending to the commission to have the matter continue. They left, not feeling the need to be around anymore. And so, Madam Chair, if you wish to do so, you have the ability to just continue this case and no further action is necessary, primarily based on the request of the complainant.
So we will continue 2023G-023 to the January 18th meeting.
To the January 18th, correct.
So that case is continued. The next case is 2023G-044, and I believe someone is here for that.
Yeah, Madam Chair, members of the commission, this is a self-referral that was submitted to the commission by the treasurer for the Ohio Association of Physician Assistants. As you can see from the outline that I've prepared, there's a relatively new treasurer. When she was doing her work, she discovered that the group is out of balance by $183.85. Her efforts have been unable to figure out what the problem was as it relates to what the difference is. And so my recommendation is for the commission to find a violation, impose a $100 fine, and then declare the committee's new balance as $10,877.92 based on based on the materials which I previously circulated to you. Greg Listini from the office of I was about to say Bricker and Adler.
I know. That's
is Bricker and Graydon. Bricker and Graydon is here on behalf of the complainant, I guess I should say, if the commission would like to hear further from him.
Really have nothing further to add. We've seen the recommendation and we agree with it. We appreciate the work that the commission's put into this.
Thank you. Any questions? All right, hearing no questions, do we have a motion?
I'll move the recommendation of the executive director.
Second.
All right, we have motion on the floor, it's duly seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Post same sign. Motion carries with the vote of seven. Thank you. Okay. That's where I was going before.
Yeah.
I was confused. Okay, so the next case will be out of order. It's case number 2023D-029, and we do have someone here for that case. It's Redden versus Moore.
It's on page 7 of your outline, Chair, commission members. The complainant asserts that the respondent did not include a disclaimer on certain campaign door hangers. There was a response received from the commission, which I've synopsized. I also sent the original to you. The respondent essentially admits the materials did not have a disclaimer. The candidate states that self-funded candidate used an example of a door hanger from another experienced candidate, and that example had a disclaimer on it, so she selected that fact. She does indicate that other campaign materials did have a disclaimer. Ms. Moore, the respondent, is here. If the commission would like to hear from her, she can be sworn and give an additional statement to the commission. If you wish to say anything else, would you be sworn? Do you swear or affirm that what you're about to tell the commission is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I did.
Thank you very much. Please proceed.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I don't know if I have much to add first letter that I put in, but yeah, like I said, it was I used a previous flyer as an example and then did not realize that was incorrect. And so as soon as I was informed that I needed it, I went back and updated and made sure that the other flyers, not too many went out that did not have the display.
Any questions from commissioners? Thank you.
We do have one of the executive director.
Yes,
Mr. Richter, is this the first violation?
yes, it is.
And the only reason I ask is there's a fine of $50.
Yeah, kind of a standard, from my perspective, standard operating procedure on a case like this. Certainly if the commission wanted to go in a different direction and make a different finding, I would certainly understand that. But my recommendation is to find a violation of $50. But I certainly would understand if the, like I said, if the commission decided that no fine was necessary.
I have a question as well. You say case like this.
Disclaimer complaint alleging that there's a failure to include a proper disclaimer where we do receive a response. I get.
And we think about, I guess you know this now, we think about them differently than we do for campaign reporting violations.
I get my answer to that, I guess, is it depends. It depends on the nature of what is included in the response, which is what I'm basing my recommendation on. Certainly, we could take the fact that Ms. Moore came down here to address the commission as an additional basis for, let's say a different recommendation. But I still look into, have they, did a respondent try and, correct the situation, put a disclaimer on after it wasn't every once in a while, but very rarely do we see, let's say in this case, a door hanger, which is a little harder, I think, to correct than a sign where somebody would say, even before I got a response, even before I got the complaint, I put stickers on a sign and went out and did those extra efforts to mitigate the situation and correct the problem. But for this kind of a situation where you have a door hanger that was out and about, there was nothing really included in there as to if there was a correction made, just that it didn't include a disclaimer. And so that's part of the basis for my recommendation of the imposition of $50 fine.
And I believe there's another case here that is a first violation disclaimer where corrections were made and the recommendation is even to find no violation whatsoever.
That was because it was brought under the independent expenditures section of law, which doesn't apply to a candidate. And that's the reason why the no violation recommendation is there.
Got it. And then there's another one that we think we find a violation for good cause, right?
Yes.
And I guess I'm trying to understand the difference, other than it's a door hanger.
And it's, to me, it's a matter of what I'd say I put a lot of different factors into my recommendations. And looking at the first one, that is a good cause recommendation. Is that when, based on the statement from the respondent, he's indicating that there were only 4 signs that a disclaimer was missing. It explains that an error was due to the printing process and the disclaimer was inadvertently cropped out, immediately recognized, and signs were corrected as soon as possible. That's one.
And Phil, was that 024?
That is 026. 026. And 033. Is kind of a similar situation there where they changed the materials at the last minute for publication, a background color, and so the word paid for by was not properly on the materials. But that also it indicates that the disclaimer wasn't properly reflected there. And so, yeah, I've made a good cause recommendation there. Alternatively, 2023 DO28, where you have 2 different respondents with 2 different pieces of material. Where one had said the signs disclaimer. First time candidate, printer caught the error when it not properly displaying other materials, and then the other one states he followed the manner in which the mayor produced his materials. And that he did not include a disclaimer, and so he believed this was appropriate. Nothing was ever stated about, correcting the
So that in particular, he got that, and it copied the mayor's form,
Right.
this candidate, I'm sorry, I forgot your name.
Oh, Tammy Moore.
Ms. Moore, copied the door hangers. I guess I have a challenge.
Well, that's why those two recommendations were similar there, because it was a $50 fine on the last one I referred to. And-
Okay, there is a development item as well.
Yes.
Okay.
But then what's the distinction on 04? Because I have.
Yeah.
Responded immediately, place stickers on signs,
On 2-4, you mean, or which one?
203, I'm sorry, 2023D 024. I had questions similar to Mr. Knight, but I was comparing that with 026. And where we had no violation in 024. And then we had a violation good cause in 026.
Mainly because 024, the assertion is primarily that the disclaimer did not include the phrase paid for by, only. And that was essentially what was addressed to the commission. And historically, the commission has not made a finding against someone that the mere exclusion of the phrase paid for by is not a part of the materials. I took the impression from that the rest of the disclaimer was there.
Okay.
But now next question, Ms. Moore. Ms. Moore, did you take any, I know you can't go out and collect door hangers, but did you do any action to create new door hangers that had appropriate disclaimer? Is there any action sort of after you found out?
Yeah, as soon as I found out, the door hangers that I had, I stickered with the disclaimer on it. And so that any new ones that I handed out had the disclaimer.
Thank you.
And Ms. Moore, do you know how many hangers were actually put out before you discovered them? Just
Maybe.
guessing.
Yeah, maybe 30. It was not a lot. It was like the very first, maybe a little bit more than, yeah, maybe between 30 and 50, maybe.
Okay.
Two neighborhoods.
Madam Chair, I happen to agree with the executive director's recommendation solely because Ms. Moore, as you know, when you are a candidate for public office, you do have an obligation to make sure that the Ohio campaign fair practice laws and not someone else. Just because they were doing it wrong doesn't necessarily mean it. So sympathize with you, appreciate you being here very much. But Madam Chair, I'm with for accepting the executive director's recommendation.
That motion.
It is.
We have a motion, we have a second. Or do we have a? Okay,
I have another motion. If there's not a second.
there is no second, so that motion is on the floor.
I would move that we find a violation, but for good cause and no fine.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor that's been duly seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign.
Nay.
That motion carries with a vote of 6-1. Thank you very much. So there is a violation, but no fine.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So we're gonna go back to page 2. And so the next case on the agenda is case number 2023G-025. We have someone here for that?
Madam Chair, members of the commission, there are two consecutive cases that involve the same complainant and respondents. 2023G-025 is a complaint that asserts a violation of either the independent expenditure statute or the disclaimer statute, where the complainant asserts that the respondent produced a PowerPoint presentation that did not include a proper disclaimer. Respondent submitted a response, which all the materials have been circulated to you. My synopsis of it indicates the respondent states the materials were produced by the PAC on page 10 of the PowerPoint presentation, where it says visit buildingcincinnati'sfuture.com, and also gives an email address where further information can be But I guess, you can send in an email and get more information, which is asserted properly identifies the PAC. My recommendation in the case is to find a violation and impose a fine of $50. Because while a liberal interpretation of the disclaimer statute would say that putting the name on there is sufficient, and I've accepted those kind of explanations before. In this particular case, the website that's identified says it's building Cincinnati's future, whereas the name of the PAC is Build Cincinnati's Future. Mr. Zinser is here as the complainant. And Mr. McTighe is here on behalf of the respondent. Mr. Zinser, if you'd like to further address the commission, you can be sworn and essentially make an additional statement to the commission. Do you swear or affirm that what you are about to tell the commission is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Please proceed.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think Mr. Richter actually made my point is that the name of the PAC is Build Cincinnati's Future. And the literature contained the phrase Building Cincinnati's Future, which was basically the slogan of the campaign. And I didn't bring any with me, but there were other pieces of literature that actually contained both Building Cincinnati's Future and the name of the PAC on the literature. And what was particularly somewhat confusing about this situation is that heretofore, until this PowerPoint presentation was provided at this community council meeting, the only literature that had been sent out by the Build Cincinnati Future PAC were mailers that you received in the mail. So this was the first really substantive document that anyone had seen. And at the same meeting, the vice mayor was scheduled to appear to speak to the council about the campaign or Issue 22 campaign. And so there was some confusion exactly who was providing this PowerPoint presentation. So that's why we sent in the inquiry or the complaint. And as I said, Mr. Richter kind of stated what the real issue was for us is that the name of the PAC was Build Cincinnati's Future. In the literature said Building Cincinnati's Future.
Morning, I'm Don McTighe on behalf of the respondents. As already indicated, the issue here is the addition of ing to the word build. It says building. This is a valid issue, so I think as the commission members know, you don't need to say paid for by. There is on the PowerPoint in 2 locations, the URL, which is building, the URL name Building Cincinnati's Future. That is, of course, literally, not the name because ing was added, but the name of the PAC is Build Cincinnati's Future. That said, I would respectfully request that the commission find no violation. And what I would like to do is cite the case of Stutzman versus Madison County Board of Elections, a case near and dear to my heart, 2001. I lost in this case, so I like to use it whenever I can. This involved, and the disclaimer law is, of course, an election law, part of the election code. This is an election case. This had to do with a zoning referendum petition on township zoning. The statute required that the petition must contain the true and exact title of the ordinance or resolution. Excuse me. That was the subject. It was off a little bit. Okay. They misstated on the petition the amount of acreage. So this case, the reason I like this case is it sums up the judicial standards that apply in considering Ohio election laws. Starts out, says, in general, election statutes in Ohio are mandatory and require strict compliance unless the statute specifically permits substantial compliance. In this case, the disclaimer law doesn't say that it permits substantial compliance. However, the court went on to say, nevertheless, we have also at times held that courts must avoid unduly technical interpretations that impede public policy in election cases. In applying these competing considerations, the requirement that the referendum petitions contain a full and correct copy of the ordinance, we are guided by the precept that our paramount concern is construing any statutory requirements in terms of their legislative intent in enacting the statute. Rejecting the petition here because of a slight misstatement in the acreage listed in the ordinance does not further the legislative purposes of fairly presenting the ordinance to the electors or signing the petition. There is no evidence, nor is there any reasonable argument that this de minimis error would have misled electors to sign the petition. Invalidating the referendum petition here based on the hyper-technical grounds suggested by Stutzman, my former client, serves no public interest or public purpose. So I can't think of really, better example to which these legal standards would apply than facts of this case, which is we have the name, the root word, build, it added ing. Is that an error such as to mislead? No. In fact, it was the URL that you could go to. And when you go to the URL, you know what you're going to find on the home page. You're going to find the disclaimer paid for by Build Cincinnati's Future. You're actually going to find these same handouts within the within the website. And so, what is the public policy served by the disclaimer law? The public policy is so that people have some information as to who's responsible for putting out a communication. I don't think that there's going to be any confusion here about who was responsible for putting out this communication or confusion about it simply based on ing being added. So you have to apply the disclaimer law in light of the legal standards that apply. I would note, although this is not exactly the same situation, but the Secretary of State has an administrative regulation that basically says that messages posted on social media website where the homepage for the committee exists that properly identifies the committee. In that situation, you don't need any disclaimer at all on the actual post. So that's essentially been an update in the way, using social media now. Websites are social media. And if you go to our website, it has paid for by, even though paid for by wasn't required, but it has paid for by Build Cincinnati's Future. So for these reasons, I would respectfully request, number one, that you find no violation. Number two, if you find a violation, you find good cause not to impose bond. Thank you.
Commissioners have questions.
I have one for Mr. Reed. So just to make this simplistic for me, so we're arguing about a suffix on a verb. Is this what we're talking about? Right,
Yes.
the ing, the verb is the same.
In fact, when I woke up this morning to prepare to come down here, so I'm almost 70. I have to go to the Elections Commission, argue about adding ing to a word. Okay.
But the verb doesn't change, correct?
No, it's still the verb. It's the root word is still there. But it is not the actual name of the pack.
Understand.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Many.
Okay.
Maybe just one. Mr. Richter, okay, so in the materials that you sent over, we're talking about a PowerPoint presentation that was given to the community, right? So like a community town hall or whatever. And in that PowerPoint, were there any calls to action, like vote against or vote for this issue on the PowerPoint? And then I'm just trying to make sure I've got this right. And at the end of the pack, or I'm sorry, the slide, at some point, it encouraged those in attendance to visit buildingcincinnati'sfuture.com.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you, Madam Chair. Can I ask Mr. Richter what his basis for this recommendation is, please?
It was not, specifically, it was not technically in the name of the committee, which is what the disclaimer law requires. The name of the committee was Build Cincinnati's Future. And so when you think of it, there's a couple of different things that went into my recommendation. First off, when you think of a disclaimer, you think of a separate and distinct statement, which isn't always the case. And that's not necessarily what the statute may desire that, but it's not necessarily what's required. And if the term Build Cincinnati's Future was in there anywhere, technically that would comply with the statute. But, as I'm looking at the materials complaint and then looking at the materials, the name of the group was Build Cincinnati's Future. And what you have here is an identification to go visit a website that's being used as a disclaimer that says Building Cincinnati's Future. It's not the same. And so, as I go through these things, there are times when I have to be I look at it as I have to be the bureaucrat in terms of looking at these materials and making recommendations. And the statute says it's supposed to be the name of the committee, and it's not the name of the committee. It's close, and it's partially there, but it's not the name of the committee. And so my recommendation is the statute requires the name. It's specifically not there. It's close. And so I'm recommending violation, and I'm recommending a relatively minimal fine to me because it's not close, but it's not the name of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Richter.
I can take that.
Really, so Mr. McDyke cites this case that he lost. How does that square with what you just told?
Well, when he first came up with that, I started running through our database and it was like, I'm not recalling anything like that. And now I know why I'm not recalling anything like that, because what he's citing to is a challenge to petitions that were being circulated on a ballot. I don't know all the details of it because I'm not familiar with the case. And I appreciate that, it involved you, Mr. McTighe. But as he indicated, it was a challenge to a decision, I think, by the Madison County Board of Elections that rejected certain petitions because there was not a specific explanation of the zoning area to be included. And I appreciate where he's coming from, and I appreciate the interpretation given by the court, but that was as it related to a ballot, getting a ballot issue on the ballot and trying to make that clear to put something before the electorate on a ballot. That's a little bit different than what we're talking about here, where you have a disclaimer statute that obligates somebody to put a specific name of who's responsible for the materials on the materials in question.
So
that was a ballot issue. That was a ballot petition case, I should say.
So other than adding the suffix, I'm struggling with what's the difference between build and build. Not like it's a different word.
I guess that it's not, Mr. Lyle, technically correct. I guess
that's probably as fair a statement as and that's the statement that I would make. It is, the name of the pack is Build Cincinnati's Future.
As you stated, you're paid to be the bureaucrat.
Right. There are various times when, I will make recommendations that I make because that's, to me, that's my role
I understand.
as your legal counsel.
I just.
I'm looking at the statute. This is what the statute says.
Fair
But
enough.
that's why I will often say, I'm the recommender.
Right.
You're the decider. And if you guys want to go in a different way, that's your choice. We could go back to, and we've kind of already addressed this once, or we've talked about this morning, and I've kind of explained this before, with the use of the term paid for by. When the commission became an independent agency back in 96 and early on, if somebody came in and made that recommendation, the statute says you gotta have the word paid for by on a piece of material. And early on, my recommendations to the commission were, if those words weren't there, that was a violation of the statute. And, you know, the first commission, the first independent commission for which I worked as legal counsel said, no, if the rest of the disclaimers there, that's good enough for us. Just the exclusion of the words paid for by is not a good basis for finding a violation, as long as the disclaimer's there. And so ever since then, based on that decision by the commission, that's the nature of the recommendation, I think. If the allegation is only that the words paid for by are not there, I'm going to recommend that the commission find no violation, because that's what the early version of the commission, again. But my first recommendations on those circumstances was to find a violation. Commission, I guess you could say the commission overruled it, went a different direction. And that's what the commission, you know, that's the commission's responsibility. And so here, the statute says, have the name of the committee. The name of the committee is Build Cincinnati's Future. And what you have here is a reference to a website that says buildingcincinnati'sfuture.com, not the same as the name of the group. So that's my bureaucratic recommendation to.
So basically you're saying the name of the PAC is Build Cincinnati's Future, and the slogan is Building.
Yes.
And you're saying that it's pretty much all the same. I mean, I totally see both sides. I truly.
I should also add that the slogan was used by several advocates for the issue who were also running for election on city council. So it was a slogan that was used by multiple individuals or parties, not just the political action committee.
Madam Chair,
Madam Chair, I'm sorry.
We're
I'm going off for a clarification if I can on
Yes,
Mr. Lyle's question.
Yeah.
Okay. And to Mr. Richter's response to Mr. Lyle, the case that I cited, yes, it is a petition case. But what I was reading is not petition law. It's election law. It is the judicial standard that applies in court cases, and in your case, you're a quasi-judicial body. So it is how you apply laws when there are not technical, when there's not a technical or literal compliance with what's written. And the court said you are to avoid hyper-technical application of the law as long as the purposes of the law are not being undermined. So that's all I wanted to point out. It's not about this being a petition case. It was the legal standards that apply in all election cases.
thank you.
Madam Chair, I would like to make a motion to find a violation for good cause, not impose a fine.
Second. I have a motion on the floor that's been duly seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
I
Opposed, same sign.
No.
Motion,
No,
That's, okay.
motion carries with a vote of 6-1. So, thank you. So the next case is 2023G-034. And I believe it's the same. Put it in your slide.
no, it's Madam Chair, members of the commission. Same response, same complaints, same respondents, obviously. Council, Mr. Tides Council for the respondents. This is a complaint that asserts that the respondent acted in violation of revised code section 3517-11 and or 359903 by paying for and running television advertisements on behalf of the ballot issue and using the mayor of the city as a spokesperson, when he was also a declared candidate for the position of mayor. And I've circulated materials to all of you. The respondent states the mayor served no official capacity ballot issue. The election for mayor was never mentioned in the advertisements. There was no coordination as required by 3517-1011. But there were expenditures as defined in 3517-11 that are not within the terms of 3517-1011. And further, 359903 is not applicable to this situation because the ballot issue is a ballot issue packet, not a corporation. See, my recommendation is to find a violation. This is something of a case of first impression for the commission under 3517-1011, which is Ohio's all of a sudden my mind is going blank as it relates to the statute, but it's an election statute that was originally enacted in the early 2000s to kind of catch, I guess what you'd almost call independent expenditures by certain groups. Electioneering communications is the term I was looking for. Certainly, Mr. Linzer wanted to have additional comments to the commission as it relates to this particular. I'll remind you that you've been sworn. And you can address the commission. And Mr. McTighe, as I said, is here on behalf of the respondent.
Yes, thank you. It was my impression that this was a case of first impression. I didn't see very many coordinated electioneering communication matters in the past. I should let everybody know that I am not an attorney. And so what I did was just outline the facts as we knew them in this situation. And I think the thing that drew everyone's attention, everyone that had spoken to me, was that in terms of the issue of coordination, it would not be difficult to coordinate between Mayor Aftab's campaign committee and the Build Cincinnati Futures Political Action Committee, because the treasurer for those two organizations was the same person. So that drew a lot of attention on the part of the public, that if that person desired to coordinate, it would not be difficult to do so. As I stated in my submission, we thought that the facts at least warranted a review by the commission, if not an investigation, because of the various complicated factors. I think one issue that stands out is the amount of money that the PAC was, the Build Cincinnati Future PAC was operating with before the first financial disclosure reports were submitted and made public. Everyone was under the impression that it would be $1 million campaign on the part of the PAC, and that the railroad that was involved, Norfolk Southern, was going to donate a lot of that money. As it turns, and for Cincinnati, that's a lot of money. As it turns out, Norfolk Southern was the sole contributor. The most current information we have is that they contributed $4.25 million to the campaign. 80 to 90% of that was spent on a consultant out of Washington, D.C. And there's really no visibility or transparency about what that money was actually spent for. I think based on my conversations with the Board of Election, the disclosure report satisfied the requirement to state what the purpose of the disbursements were. They were basically ad buying, consulting, ad production, printing, those types of things. But given the situation, it just seemed to us that additional transparency would be a good thing in this case. And again, I don't know that it's the crime of the century or anything like that, but it was a very contentious campaign. It was a very close election. And the fact is that Mayor Purval himself admitted in a televised interview that appearing on TV is a benefit to a politician. And that he did say that he met with the treasurer of the Build Cincinnati's Future PAC, and that they did discuss the campaign. So I think given those situations, those facts, I would suggest that further review or investigation is warranted.
Thank you.
Don Tiger, we have the respondents. So I do appreciate that Mr. Zinser's not an attorney. Collected a lot of newspaper articles to attach to his complaint and supplement them later. But the starting point on this is the actual statute that's led to be violated. I did submit a 4-page memorandum of law on electioneering communication. And I don't know if it got distributed to everybody. Okay. Well, I won't read all 4 pages, but I'm going to synopsize it. Okay. So the electioneering communication statute was enacted in 2002. I was actually involved in helping to draft it. It's been amended a couple of times since then. This followed very closely on, and it's patterned after the federal electioneering communication law. What was going on before we had electioneering communication laws was that entities were putting on what were called, euphemistically called, issue ads, where they were bashing candidates, okay? But they never came out and expressly said, vote for someone or vote against someone, okay? Eventually these groups got dubbed as stealth PACs. Stealth PACs because they looked like PACs, they acted like PACs, except they never actually engaged in express advocacy. And so in order to get disclosure, the feds and then Ohio passed laws, at least with respect to television and radio ads, that these entities would have to register and file reports, disclosure reports. But included in the law from day one is an exemption. It is not an electioneering communication if the ad represents what is otherwise an expenditure under campaign finance law, meaning it is otherwise, it has to be reported. In fact, the Secretary of State who has prescribed the form for this and some instructions for the form, at the very end of those instructions, it says, if the advertising is otherwise express advocacy that is required to be reported, the expenditures are reported, the contributions that pay for that are otherwise reported by who? By a PAC. Okay, then electioneering communication doesn't apply. Why? Because you're just going to have duplicate and, in fact, conflicting reporting requirements. So from the very beginning, the law was set up to capture disclosure by people or entities that were not having to report anything because they were not engaged in express advocacy to vote for a candidate or against a candidate, or of course the feds don't have ballot issues, but you know, the same with ballot issues. In this case, of course, all of the expenditures or payments, we'll call them payments, all the payments constitute expenditures under the campaign finance laws. And in my memo, I cite the requirement for a political action committee to file pre and post election reports, including detailed statements of all quote expenditures and contributions. And I cite the definition of expenditure, which is an expenditure is the use of a contribution for the purpose of influencing the results of an election. And there's even an exemption in the definition of contributions to say this definition of contribution doesn't apply when you're doing electioneering communications. So if you look at it's and the reason I say I appreciate the fact that Mr. Zinser is not an attorney is this is convoluted, okay? If you try to read through the statutes, it's convoluted. And I think the electioneering communication statute is about 4 pages long, and buried somewhere in the middle is this exemption for expenditures that you are otherwise required to report. So you don't have an electioneering communication if this TV ad is otherwise reportable as an expenditure, which it was, and it was reported. What's also important is to understand that all the provisions of the same statute regarding coordination don't apply unless it's an electioneering communication. So it has to be an electioneering communication first. And it doesn't matter how much money was spent. That's interesting, but it's not, the law doesn't depend on that. The law depends upon whether these are expenditures that have to otherwise be reported. And there's 2 ways that expenditures get otherwise reported. One is a political action committee that reports expenditures, or a corporation, say, for example, that spends its money to put out an ad against a candidate. They can do that as an independent expenditure, right? As express, the difference is it as express advocacy. Okay, so that's the dividing line. It's whether it's express advocacy. Clearly, we have express advocacy here because the ads, and Mayor Duval is saying in the ads, vote for issue 22. So it is a case of first impression. I don't know why we've never had a case here since 2002 involving the statute. It could be because these things get reported as, through PACs or through campaign committees, but mostly through PACs. This case will be decided with regard to the election communication allegation simply based on the face of the documents. The face of the statute and the face of the documents in terms of the reports that have been filed and the ad itself. I think I'll stop there in case we didn't get to the second half of the case. I don't think that was addressed by Mr. Zinsser yet. And you may want to take these things separately. The issue of an alleged illegal in-kind corporate contribution under the corporation statute. How would you want me to address?
I just, certainly we can have comments from Mr. Zinsser if he's so inclined. And we could handle them separately because if that's the commission's preference. My recommendation, would be across both issues. And I think I addressed that briefly in terms of, I don't believe that the corporate contribution, the statute 359903 is applicable here because you don't have you don't have corporation involved, it's directly involved in this or directly involved in the allegations that are before the commission.
That's the question on this. So, and I'm reading this sort of very literally, but it says, no corporation, no nonprofit, ... I guess it's a PAC. I don't know if that is included or not, but it directly or indirectly shall for or in aid or opposition to a political party, a candidate for election or nomination of office. I mean, clearly getting TV and TV time is of value, right?
Sure.
Indirectly to a candidate. And I would say that even without this, and you add in the fact that the same treasurer or, the campaign committee is the treasurer for this ballot issue. If I'm reading the statute, that indirect aid to a candidate for election is part of the statute, I guess I'm struggling. We certainly have a hearing to understand more details, but on its surface, I'm failing to understand why there would not be direct aid for this candidate for election of being on TV for free.
And I hear what you're saying. First off, I'm taking, not that I have a problem with what Mr. Zinger said, that, Mr. Curveball is declared candidate for mayor, but that election doesn't take place for another 2 years. And so we're not talking about a direct benefit to a campaign or a candidate, during this season, or even for that matter, during next election season. We're talking about something that's 2 years down the pipe.
But he was a declared candidate for that 2 years on the pipe.
I'm based on his
Okay.
assertion. Yes, I don't know the answer to that. I mean, it could be that he runs for Congress next year or state representative or something like that next year. And he hasn't declared for that position. That was my understanding. And so I personally, I downplay the fact that you're a candidate when the election's 2 years off. And in some sort of benefit. And the other thing, which I can't say that I'm generally aware of what this election was all about in former Cincinnati, and knowing that Cincinnati was owned as railway for 160 or 170 years, something along those lines. And that it was a contentious issue. I don't know that it's, to me at least, I don't know that it's fair to say that that was necessarily a benefit to the mayor appearing on a contentious issue such as this. Because while the issue passed, my understanding is it didn't pass by very much. And if it loses, and then you would almost say it was a detriment to his campaign. And so again, but primarily it's, to me, 2 years down the pipe is a bit much to say that there's a benefit to a candidate. And the last thing is, as it relates to 35903, it's a corporate contribution ban. Based on the respondents that we have before, there's no corporation here. Yes, Norfolk Southern presumably made incredible payments to this PAC, but it's the PAC that was dealing with this. And it was the PAC that circulated the materials. It was the PAC that put the television commercials on. And they have an obligation, they have an ability to do so. Norfolk Southern or any corporation can make direct contributions to PACs for ballot issues, which is what this was. And at least it's my understanding that all of the proper contributions and expenditures were reflected in campaign finance reports. That's not an issue here, but it's the understanding I have. And so that all went into my recommendation here. 2 years out, no corporation involved in the respondents that are before us. And again, I think, as Mr. McTighe has kind of said, because Mr. McTighe actually and I sat down a couple of days ago and discussed the situation. And my recommendation was based prior to that conversation, because the electioneering communication statute was not intended to apply to corporations. It's not intended to apply to a situation like this, where everything else is properly reflected in campaign finance reports and is properly otherwise disclaimed. So that's all that went into what has gone into my recommendations here. I hope that helps.
That's helpful. Thanks.
Yeah, and Madam Chair, can I also chime in on this issue, which is the corporation statute 359903, which was correctly read by Mr. Knight, leaving aside the development that these were by the PAC and not by corporation. If the corporation, we have to think about this in terms of how expansive the law can be applied, the law that you read. The Ohio law says you can't use the corporate money in aid of a candidate. It doesn't define aid a candidate. So this has to be evaluated in the context of what the rights of corporations are and the rights of the government to regulate corporate speech in the political context. The courts have said that corporations have First Amendment rights to commercial speech and to support ballot issues or oppose ballot issues. The Bellotti case, which I think probably everybody who went to law school might remember that, established the right of corporations to spend their funds in connection with ballot issues. And Ohio law was actually amended to allow corporations. You go down, I think, paragraph or division C in that same section. But we got to get back to the question of what does it mean to be an aide of a candidate? That I think has to be answered by considering the three things. One is the rights of the corporation. Okay, to put out an ad, assuming the corporation was putting it out on its own, supporting a ballot issue. Let's say the corporation did this as an independent expenditure ad, which it has the right to do under Citizens United. Okay, and it had Mayor Pureval in the ad saying exactly what he said in this ad. Is that going to be an aide of a candidate? Well, you determine, first of all, if the corporation is exercising its rights onto political speech or commercial speech, its First Amendment rights. Second, you have to analyze what is the content. And the court cases really focus more than anything else on the content of the ad. You cannot engage or you cannot use corporate funds to expressly advocate the election of a candidate unless it's an independent expenditure. Okay, but if it's not independent, then you have to come back to, but does it contain express advocacy, advocating the election of the candidate who happens to appear in the ad? Because initially, the U.S. Supreme Court has always been focused upon, we start with the actual language that is in an ad. It doesn't contain express advocacy. In this case, it contains express advocacy to vote for issue 22. It does not contain any express advocacy to vote for AFTAB Pureval. It doesn't mention when his next election is, which is noted 2 years from now. It doesn't mention that he's a candidate. And the other thing you have to look at, the third factor, is immediate context. Okay, if this had been done, say, at the time that AFTAB Pureval was actually on the ballot, so he's appearing in his campaign ads, and then alongside he's appearing in these PAC-funded ads, right? Then you have the issue of, is that an in-kind contribution? Okay, whether it's corporate or not corporate, right? I mean, the question is if there's coordination and it becomes an in-kind contribution, but only if there's express advocacy. It was mentioned that, Mayor Pureval said in a newspaper article that he was running for re-election. That's true. He publicly stated that in response to questions earlier this year with a newspaper that said, hey, there's all these rumors that you're leaving mayor's position to go work in the Biden administration. And he says, no, I'm staying. I'm going to run for re-election. I'm running for re-election. Well, that's what you would want a politician to say, right? Yeah. Oh, no, I'm not. I was just elected mayor. I'm not abandoning that in order to go work for the Biden administration. Was it, then there's the issue, is it really helpful to his campaign? It's kind of a side, is it, he said, oh yeah, it's always a benefit for politicians to be in TV ads. Well, yeah, maybe yes, maybe no. This issue, the yes vote got 50.35%. Barely passed. AFTAB Pureval's favorability rating is, about 20 points higher than that as mayor. Okay, he was taking a big risk because he truly believed in his heart that this was the best thing for the city. It's not that he's a friend of Norfolk Southern or that they're his friends. It was, this is what he believed was in the best interest of the city. And he took a political risk by doing the ad. And in a way that's kind of like almost incidental or maybe not that relevant, given the fact that his election is 2 years away. Okay, but I'm trying to rebut certain things that have been said that, it's been implied that they should be taken into consideration. The last thing I would say too is it is not uncommon, and this is in Mr. Jens's affidavit, he's worked on 50 ballot issue campaigns in Hamilton County. And it is not unusual to have public officials in advertising, okay? And in fact, we just did a quick check for the November 2023 election. Mike DeWine appeared in an ad against issue 1. Mark Romanchuk, who is a state senator, appeared in an ad against issue 2. Phil Plummer, who's in the Ohio House, appeared in an ad against issue 2. Jeff Blazer, the Delaware County Sheriff, appeared in an ad against issue 2. Scott Enger, the Greene County Sheriff, appeared in an ad against state issue 2. And just to make sure, I guess he's not left out of the party here, JD Vance appeared in an ad against issue 1. So, you know, if you're going to say that it is, and these are all, they appeared in ads that were all ballot issue committee ads, which also receive almost all their money from corporations, for-profit, nonprofit. You know, if you're going to start to say that, you know, if you're going to say, well, anytime an office holder appears in an ad, it's a benefit to him as a candidate. If it's on a ballot issue, regardless of any express advocacy, you're really going to be opening up. You can look for, you know, a lot more cases probably to be filed because it is commonplace. And it's not just about television and radio. Let's say I'm the Chamber of Commerce, right? Corporation. And I'm have my annual dinner and I'm going to invite, I don't know, the mayor of Columbus, whatever, be the honored guest. Okay. In front of, you know, 500,000 people, right? It's corporate funded. It's featuring the mayor who is a candidate in the future for election. There's no difference in that situation from a television ad. It's because the corporate prohibition simply says you can't use the corporate money in aid of a candidate. There's many ways that you can aid a candidate with corporate money other than television ads. Office holders often endorse ads for ballot issues, and the committees then put out, here's who's endorsed us. Okay, yeah, violation of the statute. If you apply the statute on its face to apply that it aids a candidate no matter what the context. So for all those reasons, I would respect the request that you follow the executive director's recommendation as well. Facts might have been different if it was the same election. The outcome might have been different, but yeah, I think under all these facts and the legal considerations for corporations, that you should find no violation. Thank you. Thank you.
Questions?
Sure. One question that I have, you're representing the campaign, correct?
Well, and yes, I'm representing all respondents.
Right, okay.
Yes.
I did read in the material that the mayor was in the spot. Apparently somewhere around that same time, Mr. Zinsser, you know, talked to the press or a complaint was filed, and then the spot was taken down. Was that because they agreed, you know, perhaps with Mr. Zinsser's position, or was it a regular spot rotation? Can you go into a little bit of that for me?
Certainly, and this is actually in Mr. Sutmuller's affidavit. Okay, he addresses that issue. No, the mayor appeared in ad number 3 out of 4. There were going to be 4 or 5 ads. Okay, this was in the. I think the ad featuring the mayor ran until about 25 days, maybe before the election. And then it was swapped out with what was pre-planned fourth ad. So no, those were, they were already in the bank, so to speak.
And that's often the case, right?
Yes, right. Yeah.
You plan your message calendar.
And is often the case in politics, you know, coincidental timing, you know, it could look good or it could look bad, I suppose, right? But no, it was, you know, and again, the The mayor had no involvement with the ad, other than to, I was told, he was basically an actor. Show up, here's the script, okay? He didn't have any involvement in the content. He didn't have any involvement on when it was going to air, when it was going to stop airing. And it did come out as a matter of the routine rotation.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Any other questions from commissioners?
I think Mr. Zunger.
Where I just follow up on just a couple of things. I think the focus needs to come back on the issue of coordinated electioneering communication. I don't think anywhere we suggest that elected officials can't appear in campaign ads for other candidates or other issues. I think the issue here is that if these are found to be coordinated electioneering communications, it would require additional disclosures that would be helpful to the voting public about, who is involved in the advocacy of this issue. And I think that's really where we were coming from. And I found it interesting that Mr. Sutmuller's affidavit indicated that there was a steering committee that made all of these decisions, but the steering committee wasn't identified. And when Mr. Purval was interviewed, he also said that the decision to hire Mr. Sutmuller and include Mr. Purval in the ads, that there were other people involved, but we really don't know, for example, who those other people are. Maybe that's not required by the general disclosure requirements, but at least under a coordinated electioneering communication disclosure, you would find out exactly who was involved in all of this. And I'm not making any further allegations, but for example, if you were to investigate this, you would want to know who the steering committee was, just to satisfy yourself that the steering committee didn't include any donors to Mayor Purval. So I think those are some of the issues that I would have with the rebuttal. The other thing is, when this campaign first started, knowledgeable, and I can't pinpoint a source for this, but the general discussion was that this was going to be a blowout, that the issue was going to pass overwhelming, because there was no organized opposition when the issue was first put on the ballot. But there was a lot of opposition that grew up. At least 3 different political action committees, including the one that I started, which was Citizens for a Transparent Railroad Vote, Derail the Sale, and Save Our Rail. Those sprung up, and they were basically outspent $4+ million for about $5,000. So, but at the outset, given the circumstances, this was anticipated to be a blowout. And so the idea that Mayor Purval was taking a big risk, I don't necessarily agree with that suggestion. So I just wanted to make those couple more points.
Just one thing. I understand just wanting to focus on whether the electioneering communication statute involved coordination. But again, the electioneering communication statute doesn't apply. The ordination provisions of that statute don't apply unless you have an electioneering communication. And we don't have electioneering communication. The General Assembly has decided that if you are otherwise reporting these as an expenditure, it's not an electioneering communication. So you can't just pick out part of that statute and focus on its coordination language. It has to first be an electioneering communication, which is not. Thank you.
Mr. Richter, if it's okay. Mr. Richter, so if the commission today would decide to set this matter for a full hearing, we've heard a lot. Can you briefly tell us what we would be looking for, so to speak? Because there are a ton of allegations floating around in my head. What would the focus of a full hearing be?
and it's hard for me to answer that.
It's hard for me to ask. I mean, I was having trouble figuring out how to ask the question.
Only because, and I'll seem like I got my marching orders from Mr. McTighe, which is not necessarily the case. But my interpretation of the electioneering communication statute is that it applies in a situation that is not related to a political action committee, essentially. And so I guess what I would say is, were you to do that, then what you would be trying to establish is that Build Cincinnati's Future, which is declared that it is responsible for these ads as a properly identified political action committee, is not a political action committee. And is then subject to the provisions of 3517 and 11. And so that is, I guess, what you would primarily be trying to do were you to set the matter for hearing. Because post-election reports are due tomorrow, I think, correct?
Yes.
And so, to this point, presumably, Build Cincinnati's Future has filed a pre-election report that properly identified all of its contributions and expenditures. Presumably it'll file a report tomorrow that reflects all of the expenses since the pre-election report. And so it has identified itself as PAC. It has filed all its reports of PAC. It has presumably identified all these expenditures for advertisements as a PAC. You would somehow be trying to say, well, you're not really a PAC. And you are subject to the provisions of 3517, 10, and 11.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Reed.
Chair, I would like to make a motion to move the recommendation of the executive director.
So,
We have a motion on the floor that's been duly seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Same sign. Motion carries with a vote of 7-0. Thank you very much. Okay, at this time, let's take a short recess. Break.
You don't know what it's called. Yes.
I already did.
Oh my gosh, it's like making my nose run. I'm like, it's.
I emailed him, just a couple, well, at the beginning of the meeting, and he said they were sending someone up.
Oh,
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate it.
Sometimes would be.
And uneven.
Oh, my God, yeah. Yeah, I joke with my wife all the time. We're gonna need to both get second and third jobs to pay the electric bill. It's,
Oh, you're gonna keep it?
oh, yeah, we're gonna move into it.
So you're not gonna change this one?
Oh, I'm gonna keep it. I'm gonna keep it. You know why? Don't mind, because I have the forums.
Yeah, no, I
To
understand.
install the ductwork, so.
Yeah.
Now I'll probably live in 2 rooms.
You're right.
Yeah. Yeah. Keep myself watching that clock down. How many years ago, it's just me. Sweet.
This I expect them to larger offense. It's very like. It's.
Yeah, well, because it is a normal.
Right, he's not gonna get.
You can stop others, you're right.
That I'm going to, my luck, I'm with Brendan's.
No, I'm good, thank you. Nice, how long you be there?
5 days.
5 days, oh,
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
Went there for, there was a trip through Provident Trail on Cincinnati that my in-laws signed, they went and we went with them, and we were there for.
Says here, 5 is too long, 3 is the sweet spot.
Yeah.
3 to 4, but. She wrote one.
Yeah. Just that, which is a surprise. That was interesting.
Mhm.
I read it right, this was the, this is the first case or second case that came before using, 3599.
Oh, no, we've had 3599 a lot, over the years, 35, 17, 10, 11, 10, 11.
Tell you, this is making my head all.
Pretty much, there's 10, 11, 10, 12, 10, 13, 10,
My throat is
14,
tingling.
which were all adopted.
I'm not
Early
awake,
or
but
into the
I'm seriously,
2000s.
our house, like, seeing these things or seeing
There are various,
Listen, so,
I don't remember what those provisions are,
he comes down on my.
but this is the first one we've had, like, just louder, I don't think we've ever had anything under.
Yeah.
And
Like, I don't like anything coming down from above.
They're, because they're more or less other, really. If obscure is the right. word,
Gotcha.
but
Yeah.
See, when I do that, I think
statutes
it's a dog.
outline a specific
Weird.
situation.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Generally haven't come.
Oh.
Yeah, that's why.
Well, I mean, I'm having some real wood.
Yeah,
I
Yeah.
don't have this like knowledge here.
Go too often, shouldn't be acting as a pattern.
Right.
Yeah, and the whole issue around the mayor, that's the benefit of incumbency. That people can ask you to events that the candidate who's not an elected official won't even get an invitation to. Yeah, so,
How
can't hold
long,
that against them.
how long are the terms, mayor?
Just like 4 years. I know there are some that are 2 years, but
Cincinnati.
Cincinnati is 4.
He was 2021, that's it.
Yes.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, I got elected the same year, Justin Bibb got elected.
Mhm.
Yeah. He's been before the commission before. He's had some issues that have been brought to the commission attention. I was just looking at those transition funds, 1014. Which actually allows a candidate to set up separate accounts for that.
Going up,
Generally, you think
thankfully
it's
this week,
tutorial, but it goes.
see some of my family up in Rocky River.
Instead of
and, take my
campaign.
Sister, from the east side for my wife, and I'm gonna take.
Yes, we did.
On
And
Saturday.
Just made them.
Yeah, and then also the
Other side.
Make it by 12.
Between.
Oh, we did.
Well-
He was video.
Probably gonna-
Big part.
Quick.
Oh, yeah.
I think they're.
Yeah.
Up there.
Oh, yeah. Hearing.
Just beat it up.
But then, he runs into this. People elected.
You don't need to start.
Yeah, I think that's. Yeah, It's tough.
Well, real. Yeah.
Oh, yeah?
His-
Yeah, that must be fun.
You know, you'd think they would still play. So, they're so intense. I guess, you know, it's just never been. So I just think, you know what I mean? Have mercy. It's not the same.
Especially when it's competitive like that.
Yeah.
There was a period there, right, you were just counting on.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm guessing the peeps from those areas are probably less.
Today.
Yeah, it's still as much for rivalry over 5 years.
This is how it was.
But I don't know what happened with like, yeah, it was good fishing. Yeah, I don't even know. It's not very big guy.
I'm sorry.
It's a big guy who fights.
Maybe next time.
No,
No. Get.
No, I'm not.
I told.
They hold us.
Once we've got told, someone said, there's all those things. That he's from Sandy, she's.
Is that I was going to, once the animal commission members, I was gonna move the computer up in her mind, so it's a little reverse who's totally transcribe it, so I might be just like a 2-minute break, move the computer and adjust. And once I
They represent the state. Oh.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of.
Yeah, oh, no, I've already.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
I was gonna say, when it comes to us, it's not like I'm actually gonna
Some of the issues.
11:31 and we can come back into session at this point.
Well, you just get to spend your whole day with us, don't you?
You got more, Paige?
What's for lunch?
We had
We
breakfast.
already have.
Okay, at this time, we are going to move on to case number 2023D-030.
Right, allow any other persons to this is a disclaimer complaint when the complaint asserts the respondent at campaign size did not contain the proper disclaimer. We did receive a response from the respondent, where he essentially admitted there was no disclaimer. It was an oversight. Once recognized, stickers were placed on it. My recommendation is to find no violation primarily because the complaint that the commission addresses only referenced Ohio Revised Code section 3517-105, which is Ohio's independent expenditure statute, which we have had for us a number of times recently, which indirectly references the disclaimer statute, but it doesn't apply. The independent expenditure statute doesn't really apply to a candidate doing his own activities. And so therefore, my recommendation here is to find no violation. If it wasn't a failure to include a proper disclaimer, but because the statute that the commission is addressing does not specifically address this particular circumstance. Mr. McTighe is here on behalf of the respondent, if the commission would like to hear anything further.
I'm McTighe on behalf of the respondent, Dr. Bird. See the table here. So I would urge the commission to adopt the executive director's recommendation. He's correct that the statute that is cited is essentially the wrong statute. Your rules require that the correct statute be cited. That's in your administrative regulations. Beyond that, it's a due process issue. Certainly, probably somebody might be able to come back and file something again, but right now, due process requires notice of not just the facts that are alleged, but also the correct statutory provision that's alleged to have been violated. So I would request that you find no violation in this case. Because again, it's a due process issue and it also isn't compliant with your rules, your administrative rules. Beyond that, I would ask, that if you were to find a violation, that you find good cause not to impose a fine. But I don't want to diminish my prior position, okay? But, you know, if you were to, go on, I think that the facts here show that, effort was taken to very quickly, within a few days, to, correct the situation with the signs by putting stickers on them. The signs were produced by the same printer who had earlier produced the cards, like palm cards or deck cards, which had the disclaimer on it. So the assumption, I think, Dr. Bird and others might just assume that it was taken care of. When he found out that it wasn't, which he discovered on his own, okay, he and his wife spent about 3 hours going around putting stickers on. However, again, you know, I think that the case is not really properly before the commission at this time. Thank you.
Question whenever you're ready.
Sure.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, Dr. Word, I hope you got a discount from the printer. Second, just so I understand, Mr. Richter, the complaint did not cite the proper area of the law.
That's correct.
Correct. So the respondent has been accused of a violation, but it was the wrong violation.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, a candidate cannot, well, in this context at least, a candidate cannot violate the independent expenditure statute based on their own personal materials or their own campaign's materials.
Right. Okay.
I have a question for the city director. As the commission before, I mean, clearly a violation occurred, right? So it's kind of a technicality that the complainant cited is the wrong one. I get that we have rules. Doesn't mean that our rules are always right or make sense, or shouldn't be, you know, adjusted from time to time. Has the commission ever had a situation where, you know, hey, it's clear violation has been, but it's the wrong statute, we're gonna find something?
I guess I would say, and don't ask me to cite a particular case, if you had the agreement of the respondent or, you know, coming before you and saying, yeah, okay, I'm willing to have this section applied, then yes. But otherwise, you know, the respondent, is here now, is, you know, certainly before us, but the complaint as written did not identify to him the proper section of law for him to properly address the nature of that statutory provision. So I would say it is not before us at this point to make such a finding.
Okay, thanks.
I would move the recommendation of the executive director.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor that's been duly seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Post same sign.
No,
Okay, motion carries with a vote of 6-1. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next case is 2023 D-027.
I would admit to a screw up on my part of even bringing this back before the commission. I misread the complaint when it was submitted to us. The complaint asserts that they responded, did not include a proper disclaimer on certain materials. It was not a disclaimer on those materials. And I read the complaint to say it was these two people. Well, what she was actually saying was the materials were pointed at these two people and not that those were the responsible person. So here my recommendation is just to dismiss this complaint. It shouldn't have even been brought before you when it comes right down to it. I should have rejected it. I apologize.
So do we need a vote?
Yes, I would ask for
So
So
All right, we have a motion before, on the floor that's been duly seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Post same sign. Motion carries with a vote of 7-0.
I think Chris needs just a brief break.
I was just gonna move that up for a second to make it a little easier because no one else is.
Let's,
It's well, give me like 30 seconds.
Yeah. Just for everybody's information, obviously, you see, we don't have a corporate one. Right. This is, she's watching the receiving, she's going remotely and tracking what we're doing, and this will just presumably help her do a little more clarification on who's doing what.
So with that, I have a question. It's procedural. We always swear witches in
Yeah.
on this situation, we haven't.
No,
Are you?
He's done.
I do.
No.
I did.
Oh, my apologies, my bad.
Well,
I have been somewhere else.
You know what it is?
Seething in pain.
It's the temperature.
No, it is. I mean, literally walked out in the hall and my head cleared up. I came back in and it's like,
So I was telling Chris, I feel really cold here.
oh, you do?
I feel like it's cooler in here. No, I did take my jacket off.
That might be.
Something.
You know, if I took my jacket off.
Yeah, I hated to do it while there were folks present, but I couldn't.
Better than that.
Yeah.
We
don't wanna
don't,
have
we
to
don't
pick it
have
up
that
before.
same, luxury.
Oh, that's fair.
Yes. Okay, so put it back on. I'm just kidding. All right, you ready? Okay, so the next case, did I call it 2023 D-024?
Correct. No, we had, we didn't, that was the case as you just
Okay.
did.
All right.
Madam Chairman,
Sorry.
Commission, the complaint asserts
Myself.
that, the allegation here, is that, there were yard signs circulated and produced that just did not have the words paid for, on the signs. And actually, even the complaint says, and only read re-elect Steve May in the village council. So the actual disclaimer was there, just the words paid for by were not. And so my recommendation, is to find no violation.
Questions from commissioners?
So
Second.
We have a motion on the floor that's been duly seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Post same sign. Motion carries with a vote of 7-0. The next case is 2023 D-026.
Madam Chair, members of the commission. This too is a disclaimer complaint where the complainant asserts that the respondent did not include a proper disclaimer on the campaign materials. The respondent states there's information that there was a disclaimer missing. Colonel approximately, he's asserting only 4 signs he identified in his response, which would have been provided with those 4 signs, to which subsequently a sticker was added, but that otherwise this materials did include a disclaimer. Additionally, that there was a Facebook page. And so my recommendation here is to find that there was a violation, but for good cause not imposed fine, and prove the matter for further prosecution.
Second.
All right, we have a motion on the floor that's been duly seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Post same sign. Motion carries with a vote of 7-0. The next case is 2023 D-033, and it is again disclaimer case.
Yep, we got a lot of disclaimer in place, and I didn't necessarily, I think it was, I talked to Mr. Lyle earlier in the week and said, as the election was approaching, all of these complaints kept coming in and kept coming in and kept coming in, and just put them on this date, and all of a sudden we had a lot of complaints.
Yeah.
And they were primarily disclaimer complaints. Again, this was a situation where the complaint alleges that there was not a proper disclaimer, the words paid for by were not there. The explanation provided by the respondent says that they had an original design, it was there, then they changed the background from blue to white, and that kind of wiped out the words paid for by. And then otherwise the disclaimer was there, it was a mistake. And so my recommendation is to find there was a violation, but for good cause, not impose a fine or refer the matter for the prosecution.
I'll move the recommendation of the executive director.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor that's been duly seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries with a vote of 7-0. Next case is case number 2023G-031. And I think it might be disclaimer case.
This is a bill of a disclaimer case, and a case alleging that there was not a proper designation of treasurer submitted by the respondent to create a committee. And a response was received from the respondent that essentially says he did have paid for by his materials. And it was reflected in some of the campaign or in some of the complaints. If you look at the sign that was included, it does say paid for by Mike Short. Wasn't it Mike Short? Yeah, Mike Short. But he also explained in his reading of the statutes, it was his belief that he acted within the outline of the law and the manner in which he conducted his campaign, based on his interpretation of 35-1708, which is all about personal expenditures, caused him to believe he was making only personal expenditure and that he didn't necessarily have to create a proper campaign committee. So that's the basis for my recommendation to find no violation as it relates to 35-1720, which is a disclaimer statute, but a violation of 35-1708-1 for failing to create a proper campaign committee or file the necessary campaign finance, actually not the campaign finance reports, but the designation of treasurer timely. He indicated, I think he would have filed all those materials. His interpretation of personal expenditures is wrong because you change your status once you become a candidate, and then he should have filed the designation of treasurer. And so my recommendation is to find a violation of 35-1708-1. But because he was a first-time candidate, and otherwise I'm aware I'm making a recommendation that find there's good cause not to impose the fine or a matter of further prosecution. I'll be glad to answer any of the questions that the commission may have.
Any questions of Mr. Richter? Hearing none, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion on the floor that's been duly seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries with a vote of 7-0. The next case is 2023D-028. Guess what it's about?
Yep. And we kind of addressed this one earlier when we discussed the subsequent case, which has already been decided. The same complainant in both cases in the same general election, but this was against two other candidates. And the responses, I've already kind of briefly gone through the responses of the respondents in 2023 D-028. They gave the explanation as it relates to why there was not a proper disclaimer on the materials in question there. And so my recommendation as it relates to the two separate respondents is to find a violation and impose a $50 fine against each respondent for not properly disclaiming their materials. I'm glad to answer any of the questions the commission may have.
Questions from commissioners?
I have a question for the director. So, and we're on 028, right?
We're on 028.
So, as I understand it, Patterson did not make any action to fix the issue, but my reading is that Sextro did prepare stickers and attach. So, I guess my question is, why are we not having a good cause for responding to Sextro?
Well, at least my interpretation is, as I'm reading Sexto's response, I will apply a sticker on all my yard signs with the following verbiage. It hadn't been done by the time he submitted this response, or by the time the complaint was originally submitted to the commission. That's why I'm reading.
I was reading the response here. It said that the stickers were prepared and attached to the yard sign. So I guess that is different than the affidavit, which does not say he's going to.
Right.
But okay, fair enough.
I'll move the recommendation of executive record.
Second.
Right, we have a motion on the floor. It's been duly seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Both same sign. Motion carries with a vote of 7-0. Okay, on to group recommendations. The first case is 2023 R-446, withdrawn by the Board of Election.
If, and just by merely announcing it, you indicate that it's been withdrawn, that's sufficient. There is no further action necessary. The matter to be withdrawn from the commission's consideration.
Okay. The next group of cases is to declare the committee terminated and dismiss a complaint. They all begin with 2023 R-. They are 425, 426, 427, 428, and 429.
And I did want to engage the commission discussion of these matters, because these are referrals that we got from the Hamilton County Board of Elections. These 5 individuals, and I synopsized the explanations that were given to me by the board, because they were all a little bit different. None of the committees here have filed reports in an extended period of time. They are currently outstanding. There is some information that the board has provided that indicates there's been no voting activity, or even that voter registrations have been canceled, not necessarily to all, but to some persons, for again, an extended period of time. And so when they submitted the complaints to us, the board made this recommendation. And so I'm bringing it for the commission. And I guess I'm going along with what the board is asking the commission to do in terms of declaring the committees terminated, and subsequently dismissing the complaint, so we don't receive subsequent referrals on these individuals that haven't filed reports in an extended period of time. But I'm kind of blathering over myself. I just wanted to make sure the commission was aware of what's going on here, and that the commission is in agreement with the request of the board and my recommendation. But to discuss any other aspect of this that you would like to discuss.
Any questions?
I just have one question. So is this something which, these type of recommendations that we had a case in front of us that we continue, or we did the daily recommendation, and it's from an election in 1997.
Yeah, these are, I don't refer, these are new to the commission to receive, more or less, I'd say requests from the board in this manner. I've had ongoing conversations mainly with either Hamilton County or Cuyahoga primarily, not really too many other counties, as it relates to groups that have a history, shall we say, of not filing campaign finance reports. And the folks in those counties, I mean, it sounds kind of trite to say it, are tired of referring these same groups over and over again and expecting reports when they haven't been getting reports. And so they're looking for, I guess relief is almost as good a term as any as it relates to these situations. And so, it's certainly possible we could get more in the future. Like I said, I've had conversation, and you guys have all been around enough, especially over the last few weeks, where we had continued cases where we kind of looked at some of these issues. The board's taking, I guess I'd say, a little more aggressive. Some boards are taking a little more aggressive approach as it relates to this in an effort to try and clean up their records, so that they're not expecting campaign finance reports when these folks haven't filed campaign finance reports in an extended period of time. And I can't speak for all of them, but at least in some of the cases here, and some of the times when I talk to Cuyahoga, there are either zero balances or relatively small balances in the committees when they did last file a report, that if there was that kind of money in those committees, bank fees likely zeroed out the committees a long time ago if there was an amount there in the first place. So I'm sympathetic to what the boards are trying to do as it relates to this. I'm inclined to say I think it's probably an appropriate approach for us to take. And in some regards, for some of these, we've had conversation about referrals to the AG's office. Some of these have had referrals from a while ago. That doesn't necessarily take away any of the referrals we have. And maybe the AG's office gets some of these folks at some point along the line. Potentially, we'll deal with that if the time comes. But so far, as it relates to these, particularly these 5, we certainly haven't seen that to this point on any of these cases.
I just add, you had it in your comments here, but all of these, anywhere from 10 years to 4 years, there's actually no voter history.
Right.
So
Exactly.
I think that's an important factor.
Mm-hmm. And these differ a little, some of the, if you think back to the last couple of meetings where we've gotten information from the board. I remember one said they moved out of the country. Others said they moved out of the county and that the county had gotten, like an updated, or they moved out of state, whatever. That's not included here, but there is the information that there isn't any voter activity for an extended period of time as well. So.
I swear I thought we discussed Jimmy Bird in the past.
Nope.
No?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And Dr. Bird.
Yeah, we do, Dr.
Yeah.
I don't know, Jimmy Bird, I was like.
Jimmy Bird.
I said, so-
It's a unique thing.
It is,
Madam Chair, would you like a motion?
please,
Madam?
pretty please.
I make a motion to accept the recommendation of the executive director and declare these committees terminated and dismiss the complaints.
So
All right, we have a motion on the floor that's been duly seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries with a vote of 7-0. The
Thank you.
next,
Thank you for engaging in the conversation. I think it's important that we discuss that.
long live Jimmy Bird.
Very interesting.
Okay, then I'm sorry, I'm way wacky. The next case, the group of cases is a good cause, cases. They all began with 2023 R dash. They are 432, 435, 442, 443, 467, 468, 475, 479, and 486.
These are all circumstances where the report has been filed, a response submitted to the commission, first time before the commission, or at least 5 or 6 years. I think these are all first time too, for that matter. A response was submitted to the commission, and the, the reports were submitted within 10 days to 2 weeks of the due date for filing. And so my recommendation is for violation, but for good cause, not imposed fine, or for the matter for the prosecution.
Questions of commissioners?
Second.
All right, we have a motion on the floor that's been duly seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries with a vote of 7-0. The next 2 cases, 2022 R-384 and 2023 R-476. The recommendation is to consolidate the cases, find a violation, but for good cause, do not impose a fine or refer the matter for further prosecution.
These 2 matters are obviously, first off, they're different because I'm recommending we consolidate and move 2 open campaign committees. Reports have been filed, the committee terminated. And I'm being a bit generous toward the group because, first off, because they're terminated, but also this is going back, I had a lengthy conversation with I think it was both the former chair and the former treasurer. It's a subsequent treasurer who didn't file the reports timely. The former chair and the former treasurer of the Libertarian Party for Hamilton County, who explained to me some of the facts and circumstances. The fact that the former treasurer that, after he gave it up, the subsequent treasurer overlooked the need to file. And some of the travails of being a part of the Libertarian Party across the state of Ohio when it both was and is not an active political party. And so I guess I'm feeling generous toward that person in his efforts to terminate the committee after the initially 2022 R-384 was originally before the commission. I don't think at the beginning of October. And he asked to have the matter continued because he knew this case was, the other case was out there as well. And so normally this might normally otherwise be I don't want to say a relatively low fine, but just because of the efforts of the former chair and the former treasurer to get it resolved and terminate the pardon committee for that county, I'm recommending that we find good cause, based on their efforts undertaken.
Questions? Hearing none, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor. It's been duly seconded. All in favor, say aye. Motion carries with a vote of 7-0. This group of cases is the $50 fine category. They all begin with 2023 R-. They are 344, 437, 438, 439, 447, 456, 460, 463, 469, 472, 473, and 477. Mr. Richter.
These are all circumstances where the report was filed. It was not timely. It was filed beyond, like I said, about a 10-day to 2-week period. A response was submitted to the commission, giving an explanation of the factory circumstances. Based on that explanation of the fact the report was filed, not in as timely a manner as the good cause cases, my recommendation for all these is to find a violation and impose a fine of $50.
Questions from commissioners? Hearing none, do we have a motion?
Second.
All right, we have a motion on the floor that's been duly seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries with a vote of 7-0. The next group of cases is the $100 fine category. They are 2023 R-431, 2023 R-434, 2023 R-465, and 2023 R-483.
3 of these 4 cases, items 22, 56, and 74 are first time before the commission. The report was filed again beyond a 10-day, 2-week period, but no response was submitted to the commission on which I could base a recommendation. Actually, some of mine have even been within I don't know that for certain, but there was no response submitted to the commission. Item number 25, Margot Somerville. We relatively recently had a case involving her campaign committee in which the commission found a violation and imposed a $50 fine. Notices only were gone out for that relatively recently. This is back again for a different report. And so I'm recommending, based on the priors, that we find a violation and impose a fine of $100. That's the difference between the 2 different recommendations or 2 different circumstances, I guess I would say.
Questions? Hearing none, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor. It's been duly seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries with a vote of 7-0. The next case is the $150 fine category. It is 2023 R-461.
Madam Chair, members of the commission. This is a case where the report was filed. I guess it was about 12 months late because it was due even longer than that. Anyway, the report was filed relatively recently. No response was submitted to the commission on which I could make a recommendation. There is a prior case. There was a prior case for the commission where we found good cause. But my recommendation is to find a violation and impose a $150 fine.
Questions?
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion on the floor that's been duly seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries with a vote of 7-0. The next case, well, next 3 cases. 2023 R-455, 2023 R-481, and 2023 R-485. The recommendation is to find a violation, impose a $25 a day fine with reconsideration option.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, these are, I believe, all cases where the respondent is before the commission for the first time. The reports were not filed. And in checking back with the Board of Elections, we got a response back a couple days ago. No, this one here has multiple. Okay, the first two cases, 455 and 481, are first time before the commission. The report has still not been filed. 485, looks like there's a variety of cases. There was a 2020 case in which the commission found a violation imposed a $50 fine, which has not been paid. There were many cases prior to that, but they dated from 2009 on back. And so my recommendation for the commission is to find a violation and impose a fine of $25 per day until the reports are filed, and give the option to have the matter reconsidered if the reports are filed and a response submitted to the commission.
Questions? Hearing none, we have a motion.
I'll move the recommendation of the executive director.
All right, we have a motion on the floor that's been duly seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries with a vote of 7-0. The next case is 2023 R-482. The recommendation is a $13,600 fine plus $100 a day with reconsideration option.
This is the fourth time this has been back before the commission. There's a fine involved with the first couple of consolidating cases, actually the first couple. And so we've made findings against them, imposed per diem fines. This is just kind of the next level per diem fine for when the one report was to be filed. My recommendation is to find a violation, impose that $13,600 fine plus $100 per day with reconsideration of the option.
Mr. Richter, have they responded?
No.
Okay. No fine, no fines. So I would be
Fine,
remiss if I didn't take this opportunity to once again bring up the fact of referring matters over, at some point. I mean, it's great. All right, and we're getting service.
Yeah, 11-2.
Okay, sorry, I don't have the IC.
That's fine.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean,
Right, I mean, they get the return receipt, so we know they received it, so.
I guess part of my problem, and I'm not gonna go into a big long thing like I did last time in the interest of brevity, but you can't just ignore an inquiry from a state board or commission, or federal, or you just can't make it go away. And, Mr. Richter, with all due respect, what we do on these matters is we spend staff time and resources and just public funds, in addition to mail service and all of that junk, to just basically be flip the bird respectfully, and just ignore it. And so, I don't necessarily need a comment. I just have to get it off my shoulder again. Thank you,
Thank you for your.
Madam Chair, for allowing me to opine.
Absolutely. That's what we're here for. Be recorded and keep records.
And it's on the pages of the journal, right?
Got a little notation here. We comments. Understood.
With that in mind, do we have a motion? Not that that's gonna affect our motion, but.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. It's been duly seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Post same sign. Motion carries with a vote of 7-0. The next,
I'm gonna interrupt quickly because I'm just looking at my ICW here. And I need to change this recommendation, and I don't think we need to handle it separately. Because as I'm looking now at my ICW, it indicates that we don't have service on this person. There was no card, no certified mail
the
card.
white water, for instance.
Or Cincinnatians for a strong economy.
484.
So that should actually be down in the continue for service category. So I would just say include that in there and let's deal with the community.
Okay, well, because I was really looking forward to 16,875 plus.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so the next group of cases will be continued for service. They will all begin with 2023 R dash. They are 484, 430, 433, 436, 440, 441, 444, 445, 448, 449, 450, 451, 452, 453, 454, 457, 458, 459, 462, 464, 466, 470, 471, 474, 478, and 480. Those are all continued for service.
Madam Chair, I just figured this out. Mr. Brinkman wanted to do that, so I didn't give the same
Oh, yeah.
talk. That's what
Were
it,
you going to?
no,
Okay.
I was going to spare all of you.
Tricked you, didn't you? No. Okay.
And I want it for the record here, when I got in this morning, prior to us all getting together for breakfast, I went through this working agenda, and there were any number of little typos and other things that I corrected, okay? And I used the editor to go through, and even there were a couple that I had, they always want you to add commas in there, et cetera. But as I'm looking at and I just did it again, my editing score on Word spell check is 100% right at the moment. So obviously, PLLUS
Is a word.
must be a proper word,
Yeah.
at least according to Microsoft Word.
They're wrong.
What can I say? I just want to put the record that I really do spell check these things, and it drives me nuts when I see little errors like that.
Just on record, though, if you're going through the editor
Yeah.
and you ignore once or whatever, and once it goes through that, that'll give you 100%. So you may have been clicking too fast and accepted the PLLUS one time, and then it said, okay, for the rest. The 100% score is not indicative of.
I'm gonna disagree with you only because as I went through this morning, I can't remember, there was something else that I came across where it wanted to add like there was the road, I somehow I had the word impose in here and it didn't like it. And I did hit ignore. And then I went back through it again and it identified it again as a problem, even though and I don't recall actually, hitting it. It's possible that I was very fast on that.
We need an updated.
But
Yeah, you may have no version or something.
I really,
Oh, yeah, it's like
I really.
1996, the commission bought me.
Yeah.
Software.
I look like this at my documents now before I circulate them to you
Yeah,
guys, because it's
what
like, I keep seeing these things, it drives me nuts.
Okay.
Anyway.
I want to,
What I say, I apologize.
I want to go on record that I pronounced that wrong. It's plus.
Full loss.
At least he's not using an etch a sketch.
Exactly.
Okay. Oh, my Lord. Okay, the next set of cases, they are 2012.
2012.
Oh, my Lord, 2012 R-245, 2013 R-171, and 2014 R-218. This recommendation is to reconsider all outstanding matters, vacate the previous imposition of the per diem fines, consolidate all outstanding matters, and instead impose a fine of $500.
This is an oddball, but what appears to have happened is based on an old matter that we sent to the AG's office. It was sent out for collection. The collection firm found Mr. Rodriguez and said, you owe us a substantial amount of money. I don't recall what the specific amount was, but it was
It had to be
much
substantial.
more than $500. Right. And what appears to have, and this is based on information we got from him and from the County Board of Elections, this is a Cuyahoga case. Shortly after the 2014 case was decided against him, and I think it was a $25, it was a, hold on, it's in my, find it, because I know I've got it in here. Yeah, $29.50 plus $25 a day from May 29th of 2014. Well, in July of 2014, he actually filed his reports and terminated his committee. But he never came back to us requesting reconsideration at that time. And so we don't know, it remains outstanding. And so it remained outstanding for all these years. And so after the collection agent got in touch with him, he found the Lord and he decided to come back and request reconsideration. And so my recommendation here is to do what we're doing and impose a $500 fine instead of the relatively much more substantial amounts that he would be getting hit up for, not only based on the $29.50 plus $25 a day, but the other cases where, we can charge $25 per day on the other report. So he did file a termination report way back when, and he never sought reconsideration from us.
And you've spoken with him?
Yes. I spoke with him and I think we got an email from the board indicating that, yes, he did file these reports on this date.
And he's okay with a fine?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
He's
He's-
50 as opposed to 5
I
million.
was gonna say, he's feeling a lot better. Not that he really likes the fact that we're imposing this, but he feels a lot better with this than what he's been otherwise asked to submit to the collection agent.
So hearing the explanation and the question, answer the question, do we have a motion? Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion on the floor that's been duly seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries with a vote of 7-0. That concludes our business. Unless there's anything else, the next meeting will be on January 18th, 2024.
And Chris?
So our next meeting, they cannot get us into this building for our meeting date. So we are in the Rhodes Tower, 30 East Broad, for that meeting alone. It's on the 18th floor, room 1865. So didn't have a choice.
Email out the information.
Oh,
Yeah, I sent it along.
Did they ever?
He said that there was nothing available here.
Got a notice from, the entity that does operational site visits. That entity is going to be reviewed by HRSA the 17th through the 19th. I'm sorry.
You'd rather be here, wouldn't you?
Yes, absolutely.
Well, I will be here one way or another.
Yeah, now here, so yes.
Yeah.
One way or another.
And I did check, by the way, this morning even, there still has not been a complaint. So just to keep everybody updated. Maybe by the end of the day today, I'll look again, but
I have one of the members of one of the caucuses, so I'll check in on it.
Mr. Richter, so where are we? I'm sorry, I didn't bring my computer today. In the interest of time, where are we on, you had attached some planning for 2024?
Yep.
Was that a topic of discussion today?
It wasn't, I mean, we didn't necessarily need to put it on the agenda.
Okay.
We can certainly do so. I think I sent out to everybody
Yes,
what
for us.
I think that I will, I mean, I've got, kind of my list of things that I have produced. What I thought would be appropriate things for me, to focus on, I guess, as much as anything. Is the electronic payment system, getting into place an allowance for respondents to remotely access commission meetings. We talked about that for a while. We're getting it done, those two things done by mid-year. And obviously also I would be reaching out, and the whole succession planning aspect of things, reaching out to the governing office and OBM by mid-year as well, in an effort to at least start that process and see what kind of response I get back. Because I don't know exactly who I would talk to in the governor's office, but it would certainly be appropriate to reach out there and do so. So those are the primary things that I was focused on. We've never really, we've always talked about identifying what the customers are for the commission. I've had this listing out there of who I think we should consider to be customers. And I know it specifically kind of doesn't jive with your thinking as it relates to complainants and respondents.
But there's not a question of driving. I mean, I think though I think it needs to go beyond just like a list. We should take that list and, even though it sounds inherently obvious, I think you'll find that if you do it, if you do this exercise, it's define, right, what all of those are. And then, start to think about the way we serve them, how we measure service to them, right? And think about, other than just listing who they are, really starting to drive towards, right, a viewpoint on how we think about customer service, how we tier them and level of importance, that kind of thing. So it's, at least in my view, that just getting that list is a starting point, but the real power in it is doing the analysis, if that makes sense, which would be a 2024 exercise if we choose to think.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I'm willing to, I'm certainly willing to have that conversation with you. That sounds trite for me to put it that way. But I feel like I'm not sure, aside from either returning phone calls or discussing things with people that call in as it relates to what we do, I'm not sure how to otherwise assess that metric.
Well, I mean, I mean, again, cart before horse, but I would envision a mechanism worse than that, and it may be as simple as a survey, right? We're going to survey, X number of past complainants and respondents from the year with 5 high-level questions that we want to get their feedback on, right? It could be, we're going to conduct, interviews with 3, I mean, whatever it is, and that's just one example, right? There's all of that. I mean, so the feedback mechanism really depends on, again, who you prioritize and what you want to learn and what you might want to measure and improve on. And, without spelling that out, it's hard to say, but I mean, it's probably just as simple, at least initially, as a series of surveys to get feedback.
Mr. Richter, part of my concern for 2024 is, I'm not saying this to be critical either, by the way, so please don't take it that way. When I first got here, 8 or 9 months ago, we were on the cusp of an electronic payment system. And I don't feel like we're any closer today than we were then. And, other state agencies, I guess I'm failing to understand why it's taking for us to institute that. Maybe because of many, staff time, folks are busy. I know we've got that. But I really want us to prioritize that and be ready by the end of Q1 of next year. I don't know if my colleagues feel the same or not, but I feel like we've been talking about it long enough.
Okay. Okay. And I'd say a lot of that comes down to Phil needs to be back in touch with the treasurer's office, move that forward. And I haven't done it.
I think it's when we talk about, constituent service, the people that we serve, which are the people of Ohio. John and I, we were talking this morning about the lack of cash and credit cards, and respectfully, it's 2023 and I don't carry cash. I still do issue checks, as you know, but I do. But I do think that I think we would see an increase in,
I agree.
revenue, because it's another pathway for them to very easily remit their payment to this commission.
Even a text,
Yeah.
text a year.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I, and again, not being critical at all, but
You're welcome to be critical. There's a certain criticism that's
well,
appropriate.
fine, then let's get it done here.
Okay.
What are we waiting on? No.
But you have to,
The cost being prohibitive.
that was what it was before,
Yeah.
at least.
So
Right.
something that we've noticed trending is that fee being passed on to the consumer. We've all been hit with it, and that it seems to be pretty consistent across a lot of vendors. What was that?
My pizza joint.
Oh, yeah, they're not gonna
is
eat it.
charging me $2 on it.
So,
That's something that my husband was reluctant to take credit cards. And I said, why don't you just assess the fee? And this has been 10 years ago. And people are not reluctant to pay it because it is a convenience and it really will at least get things taken care of. So, I mean, if it's exorbitant, we can definitely, find a way to pass that along to, I mean, it's their fine. you know, if we're being honest.
But I would look at what other state agencies are doing because you don't want to be singled out as the one that is charging the fees for the credit card. So whatever we do, we want to be consistent with other state government agencies.
But I would be anxious, or I would be curious more so to see what other state agencies are doing, because it would, I think, you know, a state agency, I'm sure they're impacted more. Well,
I wouldn't be so sure.
really?
No.
I would think.
I have a personal relationship with Robert Spray. I serve with them. If you'd like me to reach out.
I, not yet,
Okay.
because I was dealing with staff
Okay, that's fine.
there, and I need to reach back to those
Okay,
staff.
that's fine. That's fine. If it's helpful.
Because they said, here's what we need to do the process.
And look at all the modes of payment that other agencies have. So that way you have something to take in with you, whether, you know, the treasurer's office has, you know, X, Y, and Z agency takes Venmo or Zelle, and another agency allows for the texting, another agency has credit card and they allow for the fees to be added to the charges. Then, you know, we want to be right along with them.
And you mentioned the text with the information on your credit card, but also, is that a possibility for issuing the information to them as opposed to by mail? Could we also be followed up by text if we have the cell phone number?
Depending on what,
Communicate.
yeah,
Communicate.
it depends on what platform, you know, but for example, Giving Tuesday, we have a platform at work through our foundation that we were able to input all the data and send them out a text and they can click the link and
Right.
pay for it and, or, you know, donate.
Donate.
So similar to if you had, you know, a respondent call, a $50 violation, you could actually say, okay, well, hey, let me email you the link. Now the texting, we'd have to set them up with a Google Voice number or whatever, so they wouldn't be sending out on their personal,
Right.
or an office cell phone, but you could send them the link and they click it and do their thing.
Okay.
And especially if you have the-
Goes that way.
Mhm.
Especially go that way, but then I get it, I go on
Yeah.
and, you know, so it is.
Or no, you should have that link on your website, you know, pay your fines here.
Yeah,
Click.
yeah. Yeah, I'm sure there's space on our website that, you know, I don't know how, do we build that in-house or is that like a boilerplate with DAS that they provide or?
The basic template of the website was provided.
Because they all look the same.
Yeah, so that basic, just the generic layout of it. And then what you want to do from there, the pages you want to add, we can essentially add as many different pages or, you know, links and create. So let's say on the homepage, if you wanted to say, you know, payment of fines or whatever the case may be, you can click that, bring you to your next page or whatever.
Yeah.
That's not an issue.
Or have it at a tab at the top.
Yeah.
Bill, and you could cut you off there, Chris. Would it be helpful for you if committee members sent you different platforms that they think would work? Are you familiar with all that stuff?
I'm not
Because I mean,
essential, I guess.
I stand here and I would tell you, I'm not.
Right.
My kids are, but I'm not.
Right, I know I'm not.
I wouldn't know what questions to ask.
Right.
So if you have platforms that work for you, you know, I think it would be, if it was me, and I was the director, it'd be helpful if people would send me some thoughts.
Sure.
I'm just surprised that there hasn't been a procurement through a vendor
For all state government.
for all state agencies. And maybe in your fact finding, maybe they do, maybe they don't. It would be mind boggling to me if they didn't have a procurement process on a
I
vendor.
thought they did, and it was expensive, and that's why we didn't do it.
Well, that's only the fact, and even when they had conversation with them over the summer, when we first talked about doing this, and I will certainly, I'll probably start reaching out to them next week.
Nobody's gonna be in next week.
Well, you know, gotta start the process.
Don't, supposed to be here, so.
Yeah, okay.
First email that you responded to.
Their conversation with me was discouraging, I guess I'll say the word discouraging, like, accepting credit card payments based on where we are at this point, but having a kind of an electronic format for receiving electronic payments. Their discussion at that point was there was, the expenditure for having a credit card payment process in place, could be prohibitive for a smaller agency like us. But I will certainly investigate that with them as a follow-up to say, okay, we're willing to do this as efficiently as possible, et cetera. And, hope maybe over the last few months, maybe things have changed.
Yeah.
And there's, but, I always go back to when it was like, okay, yeah, we could, this is back a number of years ago when I first looked into it. And this was with Mr. Sprague's predecessor. It was like, oh yeah, we can help you do that. And, then you talk to, here's the bank we need you to talk to, because here's what we do it through. And then I talked to the bank, and I was like, oh yeah, we'll be glad to help them with that. And here's what's gonna cost you per month.
Yeah. I remember it was expensive.
And it was
It
expensive.
was expensive.
Yeah,
That's
I
what
mean,
it's familiar, sir.
right.
We can.
For a small agency like mine,
AG's office.
I mean, if you were with, the license bureau or something where you're getting.
high volume.
Yeah, when
Yeah.
that's the way I get my license updated at this point, or, my driver's, not my driver,
Yeah.
my license plates updated. Because it's so easy to use and it's convenient, it's accessible, and they tell you, you're gonna pay extra, okay, and I'm with you, it's fine. But that wasn't necessarily a part of the conversation that I had in terms of doing that, so I
Well,
was
it's one of those things,
address it with them.
that, for example, one of my businesses down home, we use Intuit. Yeah, I'm sure you are all familiar with Intuit.
Safety.
The fee, I mean, it's like 3.5% or whatever. But there are so many vendors and platforms, whether it's a flat fee, percentage only. I think the sky's the limit. And by the way, if we do it for 2 or 3 years and no one ever pays, then we just stop doing it. I mean, I think it's an opportunity for us, but didn't mean to.
I would actually suggest that you reach out to the appropriate person at the AG's office first around shared services, and here's why. Anything that we do, I would be shocked if EAS has to bless it, which means that you're gonna have to pay EAS to service it, which is why it'll be prohibitive for a small agency, because they're gonna give you a new instance and support, all that. If you approach it from a shared services perspective, you're just asking really for what amounts to one more instance or license on what they already have in support. I mean, otherwise, I think what's gonna happen, you're gonna go down a path, come back with something that's cost prohibitive, and then go back to this kind of approach anyway. Because they're not gonna let us do what we're not going to go get our own, do our own research and buy something. They're good, all good. You're gonna have to go through what they force you through. And it's gonna be whatever vendors they've already chosen. We're gonna need to try to convince them to, whether it's the AG's office or whatever.
Treasurer's office.
Treasurer's office,
Okay.
Yeah. And that's that's who I've had conversation with, and that's what's all about. Yeah, because, everything we do deposit wise financially goes through the treasurer's office, and that's who we have to deal with. And
Okay, good.
based on my conversation with
Congratulations.
they've got footprints that they've said, here's what you can use to do some of these
Okay,
things.
good. So I hear that.
Yes, and so that's who I will be looking at is the treasurer's office. And that's changed from what I originally, like Colonel already said, where it was like, yeah, talk to the bank. And here's, that's who you need work to. And we talked to the bank. I was like, oh yeah, we'll do that for you. Usually it's gonna cost you a month. Anyway,
Can I make a motion to adjourn?
Sorry, I had one question, not regarding this, but the 18th, that's the Schmitz hearing.
I don't know when Schmidt is coming back at this point.
Okay, I just
It is
wanted to
not,
know time.
it will not be the 18th, or potentially the 25th,
25th.
Okay.
potentially the 25th.
So we have 2 weeks in a row.
Yes, we have 2 weeks in a row.
18 and 20.
Well, just about that. Phil was gonna be trailing. And so Phil made the change to the 18th.
Oh, that's right.
And so, well, complain about having meetings 2 weeks in a row because of.
Absolutely.
We'll allow it. Yes.
Okay.
We have a motion. It's been made.
For a second.
There's a second. We have a motion on the floor to adjourn that has been duly seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
No.
Motion carries vote of 7-0.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Wonderful.
I still have one of my, I was sworn I only wrapped 7 this morning.